What's really on your mind? I never ended up telling the others. But if I'd told anyone, it would have been Inero. I was so lost inside. You overthink, I said. Nothing's wrong. He crossed his arms and set his eyes on mine. Lethadel, we both know you're lying. My muscles were searing. He knew me too well. Maybe I'm just nervous about fighting in main floor, I said. Isn't that possible? Of course, he said, scratching at his chin. But there's something else to you, I can tell. I'll head out to today's yearly. Would that soothe you? All right then, I'll see you there. He gave me a slap on the shoulder and passed on. Anxiety started to tear up and down my spine in the meantime, making me feel faint, to the point of passing out. A while had passed since the incident. Ninero had been onto me ever since. He didn't know what had happened, but that didn't stop him from trying to pick out what was in my head. I didn't want pity, and I was too scared to have faith, so I kept myself in torment rather than burden him with my pain. Before I did anything, I needed some time to lay down and breathe. After that, I went out for food. What ensued was a replica of days past. I saw starving villagers and was compelled to feed them. I'd received an endless sea of winnings for becoming champion of a yearly, so I made sure to be generous with what I gave the starving. Things went fine, until an old man and a small girl came to me. What I had was nothing but righteous intentions. I wanted to feed, to be generous, to be merciful and loving, but sin. Sin seized an opportunity through me. Out of love, I looked upon the old man and his granddaughter with mercy. But sin caused my love to become hate. Made me feel hate beyond words, hate for Sohal, hate for what it was. The old man was so incredibly dirty, and so was the little girl. It was painful to watch how difficult it was for the man to move around. His granddaughter had to help him along. Do you have a cane? I asked. Once, until it broke, he said, voice weak. About 3 years ago now. I looked around, sighed, and then dropped my head. I needed a second. Everything was so good in my homeland, so pure. So I truly, sincerely, had never seen suffering like this. Please, I told him, taking out money to give him. Get yourself a new cane, a good one at that. I took an absurdly generous amount of bread from my convoy and gave it to him and his granddaughter. Both of them went red with tears right away. They kept weeping and weeping, and so my heart kept aching and aching. Something about that moment took hold of everyone nearby. And then, that was when someone said it. Is this the Scion? Cried one, making my heart drop. Is this the one who will wield Iaga? Cried another. I backed up right on the spot and shook my head. The needy had officially taken things too far. That's too great an honor for me to bear, I said. But know that, on this day, I will lay out the blessings of Iaga. Iaga, so many cried. This is the one to come. This is the one Siglas spoke of, cried another. Definitely could have chosen my words better there. No, People were looking to me, believing me to be the hero Saint Siglas had instructed mankind to follow when next the world fell to ruin. What, truly, had I just started? When, at last, I showed up at the yearly, finding the others was easy. Rather than take a seat and enjoy the event, I went over to Master Gyogon with an agenda on the brain. "You finally want to speak your mind?" he said. I nodded. He nodded to an older man by the name of Lilio, and in turn, Lilio moved over so that I could take a seat. Gyogon's eyes were sharp, pierced into my very soul. It's no secret he wanted an answer or two. Our liege, King Tithark, so I said, declared that we could extend our stay here through the date of Moon Floor if one of us went yearly. That he did, replied the master of the Eclipse. So, since that is the case, I said, and one of us did in fact win a yearly, I would like to stay through the date of Moon Floor. Did a fool say you couldn't? No, not at all, I told him. I only wanted to use said time for something other than fighting, is all I wish to say. Master Gyogon's typically stern demeanor shattered. Never thought I'd see this day, he mouthed. My winnings are enough to set a commoner for life, I said. He nodded, raised me an eye. I want to use them to feed the poor, I said. That also caught Master Gyogon off guard. You're a good man, Lethadel, he said, amazed. And you deserve every good thing that comes your way. But are you sure? Moon Floor is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm sure. He looked away and tried to piece everything together. A mixture of pride and confusion seemed to be at work within him, and in retrospect, there's no doubt he'd seen through me. He had to have known I had a hidden motive in mind. Either way, for whatever reason, he gave me a few pats on the back and played along. So be it, young one, he declared. We'll do what feels good to you. Thank you, Master. Most of the Eclipse accepted that I wanted to feed the poor out of the goodness of my heart, which was not wrong, per se. But there was a bigger reason to it all. To no surprise, Nynaeve wouldn't leave things be, and kept trying to figure out the hidden reason. Really, he said. Let's be honest with each other if nothing else. You've seen the people of Sohal, I said in reply. How could I turn a blind eye? He didn't look sold on what I was saying, and I couldn't imagine anything would change that. He was like my older brother, my father. I feared most of all the day where we'd grown so far apart that he couldn't read me. When we got to our next yearly, when the day of the yearly hit, I awoke at about noon. Everyone else had left early to get good seats at the yearly. Well, mostly everyone had left, at least. Lilio was sitting on a nearby bed, reading a book. You feeling all right, buddy? I asked him. Lilio was pretty advanced in years, and it always felt like an uncle to me. Or perhaps a great uncle.
I feel good, Lethadel.
He told me.
I think it's incredible what you want to do. I want to help you.
I felt a pinch of the darkness inside of me get pushed back. Lilio's pure sincerity was good for me. It means a lot to me. I told him plainly, having someone to stand with me.
We're Eclipse, after all.
Lilio said to me.
This is what we live to do. Help people.
Though, to be technical, Lilio wasn't an Eclipse, but an overseer of King Tuthark, the king of our people. Lilio was here to help manage the Eclipse, alongside Master Gyogon. I sighed out a hurricane. You got me there, Lilio, right in my heart. I'm really just trying to find meaning, figure out who I am right now, you know?
Of course,
He said, and he raised his book at me. Ah, Siegless, I said. I do subscribe myself to the heroes of old. To that, he said, your heart is like hers, Lethadel. Lilio set the book on a little nightstand, got up to his feet, and motioned to the door. Let's go be people worth writing about one day, too. I nodded, leapt right up to my feet, and so we went on. We went, bought loads of food, a wagon to toss it all in, and found a nice place to start.
this looks like a center point of town.
Lilio said.
Great choice, Lethadel.
Thank you, my friend, I said to him, and then I climbed up on a fence and stretched out my arms. Lo and behold, I beckoned. The heart of Saint Siegless yet lives. In the name of Iaga and all Iaga stands for, I've come to feed the poor and the needy. Come, one and all, you afflicted ones, you who suffer, and I will heal your souls. To no surprise, many came running over, and yet some left to, presumably, deliver word of me to others.
This is the scion of Siegless,
cried one woman, her words loud and frantic.
This is the one I've told you of.
At the words, this is the scion of Siegless. Every heart and mind was taken captive to me.
More than the homeless and needy started to come over.
Lilio handed out food to the hungry, but I spoke to the well-off ones.
Who? Said one. Who are you claiming to be?
I laid a hand over my heart, did a low bow. I'd be careful to never claim to be the scion, but all the same, since that ball was already rolling, it seemed wise to let it keep rolling in order to draw massive crowds easier. We are the Eclipse, I said, and what I preach is the message of Saint Siegless. Feed the sick, help the poor, and I will be a stronghold to those in need.
Surely this is the one to come,
said one. But, said another, the one who was to come would come during days of horrible war. Is war upon us?
Is that what you claim?
Even the homeless were looking to me now rather than getting food. And I saw 2 knights also looking at me. I had to watch my words carefully. I am who I am, I declared to all. Merely a man of the Eclipse. I will feed the poor, help the sick, and be a stronghold of justice, and that is all I claim today.
So Lilio and I fed people,
uplifted people, with kind words, and taught the people about the ways they should walk.
For Eclipse,
We're not in the dark, but in the light. And so how could we not proclaim what we knew to be true? This all continued until I had no more food to give, and then, at that point, I took my place up on a fence and proclaimed message after message to the people. I rooted my messages in the words of Saint Siglas and Lathyrus, in the words of Saint Soth and the hero king, Miosef. For no soul could claim these were not true and just people, for they were the cornerstones of the world we now lived in. A man soon came, a man surrounded by a knight on each side. Surely this man was very high-ranking, for you could tell by his armor. I stopped my words, and the people took notice and gave a path, so the man could reach me. The man stood still for a moment, blew steam out his nostrils, and then he came to me. I'd wanted to make a scene so that all would go quiet and pay attention and hear the folly that was sure to come off this man's tongue. My men have alerted me of quite the ruckus here, Eclipse, said the man. And he was middle-aged, clean-cut, and he had the sort of fire, splendor, and authority bleeding off his tongue that Master Gilgon had. So, Thistlehelm was the start of something after all? I chuckled, ultimately nodded after a moment of indecisiveness. Yes, of course, I said softly, as if an angel. Have we met before? Governor Comaleo Igatha, said the man, introducing himself, lowering his voice so that only I and he might hear what he said next. And the people are an unruly lot, easily misled. What are you claiming, Eclipse? What is your aim here? I chuckled again, turned around, and leapt upon the fence once more. Good Governor Comaleo Igatha asks of my business, I cried out. And again, I tell all you that my business is to feed the sick, help the poor, be a stronghold of justice. Against these things, Governor, is there a law? He knew I was playing the people against him. I smiled wide. What could he really do to me? Watch yourself, he said softly, and what you preach. At that, he took his leave. Enjoy yourselves, cried the governor. This is a great blessing, the food you have been given. Work hard in the days to follow. I leapt off the fence while everyone was chattering amongst themselves and watching the governor leave. What was all that about? Lilio came over to ask, not as keen to this game as me. I shook my head. Don't worry, he's just doing due diligence. I lied.